My Brother Sam is Dead, Chapter 6. My biggest problem was getting to see Mr. Heron. If Father saw me talking to him, he'd be suspicious, and if he found out that it was me who started the conversation, he'd know right away what it was all about. But luckily, 2 days later, Mr. Heron came into the tavern to buy a small keg of rum. My father wasn't around, and my mother said, Tim will bring it right out, Mr. Heron. So I slung a keg of rum over my shoulder and followed Mr. Heron up the road to his house, which was only a couple 100 yards away from the tavern. We went around to the back, and I carried the keg into the kitchen and set it on the rack. He reached into his pocket and handed me a penny. "Thank you, sir," I said. "Have you thought any more about studying surveying with me some day?" "Well, I haven't, sir, but I was thinking, though, that I might like to earn some money at that job you mentioned before." "Aha," he said. "Your father changed his mind, did he?" "Yes, sir," I said. "He said it'd be all right, so as long as he didn't know anything about it. If I just went and didn't tell him anything, then he wouldn't be object." Mr. Heron put a hand on my arm and gave me a little squeeze. "That's a lie, isn't it, Timothy?" I got hot and blushed. "I guess so, sir." He let go of my arm. "Your father doesn't change his mind very often, nor very easily." I felt stupid and looked down at the ground. "Yes, sir," I said. "I'd still like to go, though. Aren't we supposed to be loyal to the king?" He stroked his chin. "Not everybody thinks so." "I do, though." I didn't have any opinion either way, but I thought it would help if he believed that I was a strong loyalist. He smiled a kind of funny smile. "You've got your brother's spirit, don't you?" Being compared with Sam made me feel good. "I'm as brave as he is," I said. "I believe it," he said. "Suppose I let you run some errands for me. What would you tell your father?" "I'd tell him I was shad fishing." "And come home with no fish?" "I tell him they weren't running or something. You can't always expect to catch something." He rubbed his forehead, thinking. "All right, if you come up early tomorrow morning, I'll have something for you to do to earn a shilling or so." So that night I asked Father if I could go fishing again, and he said yes. I felt sort of bad about it. It was lying, and lying was a sin. So I was going against your father, and even if it hadn't been a sin, I would have felt badly about it because Father trusted me, and I was being dishonorable. But I wanted some glory too, much to be honorable. So Wednesday morning I got up way before the sun, when it was just beginning to get light, and took my fishing line and hooks to make the excuse hold up, and I walked to Mr. Heron's house. I was lucky. It was a good day. The time of year it could easily have been pouring rain and cold, but as the sun came up there were only streaks of clouds in the sky. The birds were singing, and the wildflowers along the roadside were bright and gay. I felt excited in a good way, and as I walked along to Mr. Herring's, I began to whistle Yankee Doodle, before I remembered that I ought to keep quiet so people don't notice where I was going. When I got to Mr. Heron's house, I went around back to the kitchen door, and I started to knock, but I had hardly gotten my fist up when the door jerked open, and Mr. Heron grabbed me by the arm and pulled me in. We walked down the hall into his study. It seemed awfully rich to me. There was a little stove there with a few coals glowing, and a desk piled high with papers, and a carpet on the floor, and some chests and drawers. He sat down at the desk, wrote something out on a piece of paper, sealed it up. "Timothy, you'll have to move quickly. This message has to go to Fairfield. I will take you at least 5 hours to walk down there and 5 to walk back. You'll have to be home before dark in order not to raise suspicions. Have you ever been to Fairfield?" "A couple of times," I said, "with my father and Sam to get rum." "Then you'll know where the dock is. Now listen carefully. Just before you get to the dock, there's a road off to the left. Down the road about a mile there's a house with a white siding and green trim. Knock there. Ask for Mr. Burr, and give him this letter. He will give you a shilling. Write. Now repeat it back." I did so, and then I tucked the letter down inside my shirt and left, slipping out the back way and through his pasture before I cut back onto the road. The sun was now up and was rising over the meadowland to the east. I judged it to be about 7 o'clock. The sun wouldn't go down again until around 7 at night, which gave me 12 hours, plenty of time if I walked along swiftly. In fact, if everything went well, I could easily be back by the middle of the afternoon, which might even give me time to catch a few shad to show my father. I hid the fishing tackle behind a stone wall, just in case. I moved at a brisk pace despite the sun. The air was morning cool and fresh. It was nice weather for walking, and I felt excited, not scared. I was worried about dropping the letter, though, and I kept touching it to make sure that it hadn't fallen out of my shirt. After a while, I came to a place where the road from the center runs into Fairfield. I stopped for a minute to rest, to see if I couldn't find a better way to stow the letter so it would be safe. I was trying to find a way to hitch it under my belt when I heard somebody shout. I looked up. Betsy Reed was coming down the road from the center. "Hello, Tim," she said. "Hello." She came up to me. "What are you doing here? What's that?" Hastily I showed her the letter, I shoved the letter back into my shirt. "Nothing," I said. "Well, it isn't nothing," she said. "It's a letter." She smiled. "You have a girlfriend." "No," I said. "I have to go. I'm kind of in a hurry." "I'll walk with you," she said. "Where are you going?" It made me nervous having her walk along with me. She wasn't suspicious of anything, but I didn't think she would go down to the tavern and tell Father she'd seen me. But if she should happen to accidentally bump into him, she might say something. "I'm going fishing," I said. "Fishing? On the Fairfield Road?" "There are shad in the mill stream." "Well, you're going the wrong direction," she said. "Oh, well, I know that. I was up there already, but there weren't any shad, so I'm going someplace else now," I said. I was blushing from telling so many lies. Lying is a sin. "Don't you want to know where I'm going?" she asked. "Sure," I said. "I'm going down to Horseneck. Guess what I'm doing?" It was better to have her talk than me, because it saved me from lying. "I don't know. Shopping for cloth?" Guess again. Horseneck was down on the Long Island Sound, too, but much further south than Fairfield. I couldn't figure out what she might be doing there. "Visiting your cousins?" "I don't have any cousins there." "Well, then, or what then?" "Seeing Sam," she said. I stopped dead in the road. "Sam is in Horseneck?" "I shouldn't tell you that. You're a Tory. Anyway, he's not there any more. They've gone someplace else." We weren't walking along any more, but facing each other. I was all excited. "How do you know Sam is there?" "Mr. Herring told me." "Mr. Herring? How does he know?" He's a Tory." She frowned. "Well, I know that, but he said that Sam was there with a commissary officer scouting for beef." It didn't make any sense. Mr. Herring was supposed to be a Tory. He was supposed to know where American commissary officers were, or commissary officers were. Suddenly I realized I was wasting time. "Where is he now?" "I won't tell you. You're a Tory." "That's not fair, Betsy. He's my brother." "God, Tim, you tried to shoot him." I blushed. "Is Sam all right?" "Yes, he was in battle, I guess. I better not tell you about it." "You can tell me if it's already happened, can't you?" "I better not," she said. "Listen," I said. "I better get going." We started walking. "Where are you off to in such a rush?" she said. "If you won't tell me anything, I won't tell you either." I thought that was a pretty smart answer. It was like one of Sam's telling points. "All right, sulk," she said. "Besides, I know you're carrying a love letter for somebody." "You've just got love on your mind because of Sam," I said. Something was puzzling me. "Betsy, how come Mr. Herring didn't tell me about Sam this morning?" "Because you're a Tory. But so is he." She stopped. "What were you seeing Mr. Herring about this morning?" I realized I'd made a bad mistake. "Oh, I just happened to go by his house this morning, and he was there." "There? Where?" "He was standing in the yard." "Doing what?" "How do I know what he was doing?" "He wouldn't have been standing. The letter—" "Tim, you're lying. The letter. He gave you the letter to carry. Tim, where are you going with that letter?" She was pretty excited to have that been kind of bouncing around in front of me. "I have to go, Betsy." She jumped in my way. "Oh, no, you don't. Not until you tell me about that letter." She was bigger than me, not by much, and I figured that since I was a boy I could break away from her and run if she tried to stop me. "That's a private letter," I said. "I can't tell you about it." "Oh, no, Tim," she shouted. "Give me that letter." "No," I said, and I tried to duck past her, but she jumped out in front of me again. "Tim," she screamed, "you know what's in that letter? It's a spy report on Sam." That shocked me. It can't be. Why would Mr. Herring make a spy report on Sam? "Not just Sam, can't you see? He found out about Sam and the commissary officer buying beef. And now he's sending news to the lobsterbacks so they'll know where to find them and kill them and steal the cows. Give me the letter. She snatched my shirt, but I ducked. Don't, Betsy. It's Mr. Heron's. Tim, you're going to get Sam killed. They'll set up an ambush for them and kill them all. No, no, I said. It's true, Tim. Figure it out. You can't deliver that letter. I have to, I said. She stood in front of me, kind of begging. Tim, let's open the letter and see. If there's nothing important in it, then you could deliver it. I can't break the seal, Betsy. It's Mr. Heron's letter. I could be put in jail for that. Tim, it's your brother. They're going to kill. Just throw the letter away and say you lost it. I didn't know what to do. I felt awful, sick and scared. I didn't say anything. Tim, give me that letter. Betsy! Then she jumped me. She caught me completely by surprise. She just leaped onto me, and I fell back downwards, and she was lying on top of me, trying to wrestle her hands down inside my shirt. God damn you, Betsy! I shouted. I grabbed her by her hair, and she tried to pull her head back, but she jerked it away from me. I began kicking around with my feet, trying to catch her someplace where it would hurt, but she kept wiggling from side to side on top of me, and I couldn't get in a good kick. I hit her on the back, but in that position I couldn't get much force. Get off me, Betsy! Not until you get the letter, she said. She jerked at my shirt, trying to pull it up. I grabbed her hands and twisted my body underneath her, turned over so I could be on top, but she pushed her whole weight down on me, grunting, so I slammed her hard as I could on the side of her head. You little bastard, she shouted. She let go of my shirt with one hand and slapped me as hard as she could across the face. My nose went numb and my eyes stung and tears began to come. Damn you, I shouted. I let go of her hand where she was clutching my shirt and grabbed her by the shoulders, trying to push her off me. She jerked my shirt up, grabbed the letter, and jumped to her feet. Without rising, I kicked out with my feet at her ankles. I got a good one in. She stumbled but didn't fall. By the time I got up, she was running down the Fairbanks Road as hard as she could, opening the letter as she went. I started to run after her, and then she flung the letter over her shoulder onto the road, disappearing out of sight around the bend. I ran up to the letter and picked it up. It was rumpled in the dirt. It was rumpled and dirty. All it said was, "If this message is received, we will know that this messenger is reliable."